Okay, so welcome. Okay, so finally, welcome to the first ever powerful Comicsman podcast. My name is Gerald, and I am your host. Actually, I don't have any guests, so I am this. I don't know. I'm just gonna be talking. I'm just influenced by other podcasters out there, and you know what? I thought I do it myself because I enjoy listening to those podcasts a lot. How rude am I? Let me just introduce myself first. My name is Gerald, like I said, and I have been a professional artist for quite some time now, probably 17 years. I've been working as an artist, as an illustrator, since I was 19, and you do the math, 17 or 18 years now. So that's that's just what I do. I'm freelance. I used to work in an office environment in a studio where I draw with lots of other artists with me in the room, and I kind of that's what I kind of miss, the the environment where you could just fool around and talk about silly things with other artists who's working on the exact things that you're working on. um, it was a storyboarding studio before, and that's where I learned the craft that I'm doing now most of the time, storyboarding for commercials. But from there, I've moved on um, into game art, mostly concept art designs, for games, for animations, and commercials, ads, and but even before that, even before I started storyboarding, I I was a comic book artist. That actually I had a comic strip that was serialized in a local broadsheet in the Philippines, and it's called the Pinoy Passenger. But unfortunately, much to my regret nowadays, well, not really, but yeah, I do think of it. Whenever I think of it, that what would it have been if I continued um, creating those comic strips? Because I don't know, it could be something something big already by now, because a lot of my contemporaries have done it, and even though I wasn't making money from it back then, and they probably were as well. Well, at least um, they've already published a few books, actually several books already over the years, collecting the comic strips, the daily strips that they make, and it's fun. It's something that you can show that you've accomplished in your life. And right now, since I only did it for a couple of years, maybe less even, just around a couple of years. Um, I don't have I don't have that collection, and when I look at those comic strips that I did before, it's the story I still enjoy, but it's uh, it's not very. It's not. It's been so long ago that I don't think that that would represent me as an artist by now. Right now, I mean, if I'm gonna publish it, publish something, I should publish something that would represent me right now. And publishing something from more than 10 years ago is maybe not the best move, at least to me. But maybe one day after I've published new materials from me. But for now, because that's another thing. Um, along with this YouTube thing that I'm trying to do, I am I am going to revive my comics career career in creating, and that's why I want to be more productive. I want to focus on building my brand and come up with my own stuff, actually, because storyboarding, even though it gets me along, kind of pays well too, but um it's storyboards. Nobody wants to look at those storyboards, especially for the commercial ones. If it's storyboards for, let's say, Star Wars, which I even have a book over here, a collection of storyboards from the Star Wars movies. Those would be interesting. But if you're gonna be if you're talking about storyboards about let's say a Heinz commercial, a Heinz mayonnaise commercial, or Dole commercials, I don't know, maybe some advertising folks would like to look at it, but it's not really. Maybe something, maybe that would work, but for now it's just but that's for now, that's not a project that I would entertain at this moment. I would rather go back to my roots as a comic book artist, and because I'm calling my channel Komiksman, and my Facebook page is called Komiksman, and I'm not into comics. That's why I'm going to start reading comics again, and I've already started writing my next comic. My next. I'm more of a graphic novel guy, but I've started writing the next comics project that I'm gonna do. And since that's not finished yet, I'm gonna start with the reading part. Um, just a while ago, I went to a local comic book store in UP Town Center in Quezon City, Manila, in the Philippines. I'm in the Philippines, and got the 4 copies of Batman, White Knight, and I also asked the guys at the store to reserve me the back copies of Doomsday Clock. I've already told them before, but I think my request got lost. Actually, started asking them last month, but they were able to get me the 4 White Knight issues. I don't know if these are variants or not. I don't know if these are if these are first printing stuff, but I really don't care. I just wanna read the comics. I just wanna read the stories, and I'm not really a collector. This is the first time that I am going to be reading comics. Actually, mainstream comics. No, not mainstream. New releases of comics. I think the latest comics that I read and finished. Actually, I'm not also a mini series guy. I'd rather buy trade paperbacks, the collected editions, because I I I just it's just not in me to collect. It's not one of my interests. But right now I'm gonna try. I'd rather get one book and read it all the way, not in one sitting, because I kind of read slow. Um, but you know what I mean. I want it to be there whenever I am available to read it. Okay, so that's that's the that's my comics. That's the plan of me making videos on reading comics. And I'm gonna make a separate video of that. Okay, I'm gonna for now let's just make this my first episode for the powerful Komiksman podcast. And also I'm also planning to have, you know what, I'm just gonna get another thing over here. Yeah, this is my UFC hat, and whenever I am wearing this, I'm gonna be discussing MMA, because that's the only sport I am currently passionate about. And MMA, especially the UFC, is one of the best things in this world for me right now. And I just love it, man. I just love the fighters. I follow at least most of the news sites and podcasts about MMA. And I'm really balls deep into this stuff. So even though it has nothing to do with comics and being Komiksman, um, I don't know. I want to do it. Okay, so I'm gonna be sharing. My thoughts on various fights, what I think. Maybe I do prediction videos, or maybe I do analysis videos. You know, with the limited knowledge I have about fighting. But you know what? There's more into fighting than in MMA. Or if you follow the storylines, if you follow the things that are going on, there's a business part of it. There's the human part of it. There are the you know the inspirational part of it, the lessons, the life lessons that you can learn in from these fighters and these fights. And so those are the things that make watching MMA very, very good for me. It's I'm the kind of guy um who would look into things that interest me into the finest detail. At least that's, I don't know if that's accurate, if that's an accurate description, but I kind of analyze things in a little more than the average person, I suppose. So So even though I am not an athlete, even though I'm not a coach, even though uh, basically I'm just a regular fan, I don't care. I'm gonna put my 2 cents out there, and because I think they're sensible, you know. It's it's not like I'm gonna because I've also watched these MMA videos, guys, MMA YouTube channels, and I hear their analysis, and I watch their videos and see and um, yeah, hear what they think about certain fights, and sometimes I agree to them. Sometimes I have other ideas that they didn't say, and a lot of the ideas that they were saying are ideas that I myself have also thought about, and basically we're just the same people, and their analysis are just more or less as good as mine. I understand that a lot of these content creators are also martial artists, or they train a lot more. I've trained as well, but not as extensive as you would like, as you would prefer for somebody who would claim to know about the sport. But you know what? YouTube is free, and I don't even know if people are gonna watch it, so I'm gonna do it anyway. Okay, so that is the UFC hat. I'm gonna remove my UFC hat because I'm not gonna talk about the UFC right now. Those are gonna be videos for another time. What else would I say? Um, so I'm also doing vlogs. I just uploaded a video just a few days ago about our trip to Nagpatong Rock, and okay, maybe I'll talk about that one. So I went into a day hike to to a rock formation. This you see, if you this place is located in a town called Tanay in the Rizal province in the Philippines. And if you ever pass the road that overlooks the mountain we went to, you're gonna see patches of rocks, of huge rocks, all throughout the mountain. And so we went there and hiked to one of those rocks, and we climbed it to the summit. And it was fun. I've always wanted to try hiking. Actually, this is the first time that I hiked, and I did hiking before because I grew up in the province, and if you just step out a few just not even 100 meters from our backyard, it's gonna be the forest already. It's already uh almost pristine rainforest, just 100 meters from our backyard. So I'm pretty used to that kind of environment. Although in our place there, it's mostly the what do you call this? The terrain is pretty leveled. You don't climb so much unless unless you walk maybe 2 or 3 kilometers from our place. It's still pretty much a trek. You're not climbing. That's what I mean. But in this Nagpatong Rock, there's gonna be a ascent. So when we got there, when we got there, it's it was very it was maybe just about sunrise, around 6 a.m. And I thought we're gonna be there, and then it's just gonna be us. But to my surprise, I actually didn't know that Nagpatong Rock is quite famous already. So I was surprised to see that there are other groups of people, actually already several groups that were already there, and it's like you're seeing these people, and it's like you're expecting to have the place alone for yourself, but I didn't expect there were others who were going. But so that was the first surprise. But then it's okay. It's I just didn't realize that the rock is already a tourist spot, and it's quite popular, and it's actually a destination for a lot of friends who want to experience hiking. And actually, this is one of the best place to try, especially if you're a beginner, because it is relatively easy. The climb isn't very hard. If you're a healthy person, even if you have some weight on you, because I'm not the fittest guy in the right now. I'm quite heavy. I'm actually fat, but I manage just fine. So if I could do it, then not, if you don't have any diseases, or if you're healthy, you can definitely do it. And the terrain isn't very hard to navigate. It's like I said, it's very easy, and it's what's even better is the climb has two parts. The first part, when you're going to the rock, it's a slope, and it's downhill, so it's not hard at all. You just need to watch your step and not step on loose rocks so you wouldn't fall. Other than that, it's very easy. And I think even if there's mud, if it rained and there's mud, you just get a little dirty, but it's really safe. The second part is where you start to climb. So there's a little valley right in the middle of the first part and the second part. So you could rest there for a few minutes. There's a little store in there where you could buy refreshments, drinks, and some snacks. But afterwards, you're gonna start ascending into one of the peaks of the mountain, because this mountain is actually what do you call that? It's a mountain range. It's not just one mountain, so there are several peaks on that range. And you're so after the pit stop with the little store, you're gonna climb that peak. And the rocks becomes a lot bigger, because on the first part, basically they're just little pebbles. because when you start at the jump off, there's a rural, it's a rural place. There are houses, and as you move out, the houses gets farther and farther from each other until you don't see any houses anymore. But in the second part, there are absolutely no houses there already, and it's just pristine forest. And there are rocks, because I suppose that mountain range is a really rocky mountain range. And but don't worry, the rocks are still very manageable. You don't need to rock climb um, at all in those rocks. And after maybe 2 kilometers of climbing, this part is the most amusing part for me. When I got to the peak of the hill, or the peak of that Nagpatong Rock Trail, we found out that there's a little store again. And aside from the store, well, the store is made of very light materials, and it's already decaying, because I suppose that store had been there for maybe more than a year. And of course, it's just made up of coconut leaves, and some of the firewood plants that you could just chop and use a pole, stick it to the ground, tie the sticks together, and then form a little cottage or a little hut for the store. And then you put those coconut leaves on top, and it's a roof. So that's the kind of store that's in there. But aside from that, there is also, well, actually there are a few cottages with roofs that this guy, the store owner, owns. And his gimmick is to have those little cottages rented for the Nagpatong Rock visitors, because the Nagpatong Rock itself, it's only about 5 minutes away from this pit stop. And since there are tourists that actually, especially during the weekends, there are many tourists that come, and it gets the traffic gets heavy. So you can't just, of course, you can't go on the top of the rock at the same time. Not everyone can do it at the same time. So others would have to wait. If you watch the video, you'll see what I'm talking about exactly. You can only go there. You can make the climb one at a time. So that slows down. That greatly slows down the time for everybody to get on top get to the summit of the rock. And since we're already there. Okay, I got lost there for a little bit. What I'm saying, well, I was talking about the guy who found this little business opportunity at the peak of that climb. And when I got there, he was scolding. he was scolding the some of the other climbers that were there already, and he was saying, "What the hell?" Of course, he said it in Tagalog, in Filipino, but he's telling he was asking angrily, in an angry tone, the people who were sitting. He was pissed off that they were sitting without paying. so that was really funny for me. I didn't laugh out loud, but it's just not something you would expect to see in the middle of the jungle, on the top of a mountain, and this angry businessman scolding young people, not young people, climbers, because most of the climbers were pretty in their early 20s. So I'm already in my mid 30s. So the early 20s guys, they're kids, okay? so uh so what happens is, of course, the the people that this guy scolded, they were embarrassed, but of course, this guy, that's his business, so you can't really argue with him. He's probably with the barangay, the local government. It's probably permitted. He's probably paying the local government some fee to let him operate in his racket. And aside from the cottages, there's also a little cubicle. There's a restroom in there, and it doesn't even have a door. The door is it's like a wall that you could move aside, so there's no hinge, and it's made of coconut leaves as well, where you can see through it. It's not even weaved, so that you wouldn't be able to see who's inside and what they're doing. So pee if you're gonna take a piss in that restroom, there's also this really dirty toilet bowl in that little enclosure, in that cubicle. And it's really funny that, like I said, I lived in the province, and I haven't seen that kind of a toilet. Actually, I've never seen a toilet in the jungle. That's the first toilet I've seen in the jungle. The other Our neighbors who live in the forest, unfortunately, they don't have they don't have bathrooms. They don't have toilets. They just go and then throw it somewhere and use or maybe use it as fertilizer to their crops. I don't know if I'm gonna put this in in this podcast, but maybe I would. But so that's why it's quite funny that there's this toilet in that mountain, and people, I don't know, actually, I was I really needed to piss when I got on top, when I got to the peak, but and I was supposed to just go and pick a tree and go there, but since I saw that little restroom, fuck. Oh, I'm not supposed to say fuck, right? So, since I saw that, and there are other people there aside from the group. Well, actually, our group itself, we don't know each other very. Some of most of the guys in our group just met each other for that climb, so I don't really know most of the people in there. So I was kind of, because I'm a guy, okay? I could have I could have easily picked just walk a little bit into the trees and then just take a piss in there. But since there's a toilet, there's a kind of I don't know, there's a kind of uh, all of a sudden I am under this rule of civilization that you as a civilized person, you have to go to the toilet to piss because it's available. And it's kind of I was kind of fascinated, and I was compelled to abide to that mentality, to that rule, quote unquote rule of being civilized. And I don't know, but because you gotta pay 15 pesos, that's not much, but well, actually it's much, because over here in the city, public restrooms would only charge 2 pesos to take a piss, and this mountain is charging 15 pesos to take a piss, when everything where you can take a piss freely within, I don't know, maybe 500 meters radius of that location, nobody's gonna tell you off, except for, in my case, myself. I was embarrassed. If I thought it would be embarrassing if I take a piss in one of the trees and not use the restroom. So that was really weird for me. I don't know why. It's like there's a little contract that I am really compelled to follow. That's just weird. And that's how I saw the little toilet. It was nasty, and like I said, the door, you can see through the door. And if you're gonna go for number 2, meaning you're gonna take a dump, yeah, if you're gonna take a dump, so everyone would be able to see you. If you would have to look away for or the people outside would have to look away, rather, so that they won't see you. If they turn to that direction and focus their vision towards you, they're gonna see you for sure doing your business in the toilet. But I can't imagine anyone going there. But that's I couldn't help thinking about that when I saw it. Okay, enough of that place. Let's go to the climb itself. It's actually it's very impressive when you look at the photos, because this Nagpatong Rock Formation, it's actually, some people call it the two towers, because there are two nearly two rocks that looks like towers if you look at the video. So they're almost similar in height. So the trick is, one of your guides, one of your hiking guides, would go to the other rock while you climb the larger rock, because there are two rocks, right? The first one is a little thinner, it's a smaller rock, and the other one is about twice as large as that other rock, and that's where the tourists go. The photographer would be on the other tower, and that's how you get the photos of you in on top of that rock. But of course, if you have a drone, you can make that photo as well. But the problem with drone is it's very windy in there. So if it crashes, goodbye to your drone. There's no way you could find it in that sea of trees, unless you're a tour guide. But that's very challenging. And so even though we had a drone in our group, we weren't able to use it. But anyway, we climbed there, and there's a ladder. So from the convenience store and the dirty toilet, we walked another 5 minutes into the base of the Nagpatong Rock, and again we see there's probably at least 60 people waiting to get their turn to climb, and it took us, I don't know, probably more than 3 hours sitting there just waiting for our turn. And since that is the jungle, it's not really the nicest place to sit and wait, because it's uncomfortable. There are no seats, obviously, and there are rocks everywhere, and the rocks weren't smooth. They're actually very sharp and not butt friendly at all. So you can find a few spots where you could sit, but you cannot sit and kind of relax sitting. You just need to still hold your weight. You just need to, it just really eases a bit to have some parts, some weight taken off you, and kind of sitting, unless you're lucky enough to be the first in there and get the nicest spot. But that's the trick. If you want to go there, you have to either be the first group to arrive, or you as the guides said, go on a weekday, because we went on a weekend, and there's probably, I don't know, maybe close to 300 tourists on that day. Just our group, maybe just 200. That 300 is already a lot. Just our group, we were about 33 who climbed in there, and it took us, like I said, 3 hours, more than 3 hours, to probably 4 hours, just for us to get there, to climb, to get to our turn to climb. And okay, let's set that aside for later, that thought. Let's just talk about the climb itself. So when finally, after about 4 hours of waiting, it's our turn to climb the rock. And if you are thinking rock climbing with ropes, that's not what we did. This location is already promoted by the local government as a destination for tourists. So they've I assume they've made everything. They made sure that everything would be safe. And what they did is, instead of scaling the rock, they installed ladders and ropes, and there are guides all along the way, and they literally tell you how to get across, what kind of movements you need to do, which their instructions are like, okay, left foot on this rock, and then right foot over this rock, and so on and so forth, and hold to that rope. Basically, every step literally is told to you, because so they have, it's like a puzzle that you have the answer to. You have a note on how to solve that puzzle. That's basically what they're doing. Because if it's your first time there, you probably wouldn't know what to do, and you'd fall. And that's, I don't know, maybe a 60-foot drop into solid granite below. You're dead, man. But since they have installed the ladders and the ropes and the guides who tell you exactly what you need to do, so far everybody has been safe going up and going down this rock. Okay, so there's the hardest part of that climb would have to be the part where you're literally hanging at the edge of the rock. You're not hanging as in because you still have footing. Okay, so I have that in the video, but you can check it out there. But it's you're basically scaling the rock at its side, and you're just holding on a rope, and very little footing supports you. If you what do you call, what word is that? If you release if you release your grip on the rope, surely you're gonna fall. And that's the most nerve-wracking. I actually got scared. I wasn't scared at all when I was looking at it, and when it was finally my turn to make that pass, I got scared. But you can't back down. So I went and made it. That's why I'm still here. And from there's a little landing, and then we go to the final push. There's another ladder, a smaller ladder that you could climb, and then it's like a natural staircase, a very ragged staircase that followed after. And then the other funny thing about this trip is, when you're climbing a mountain, and what you see in the photos of your friends who has been on mountaintops, it's like them and nature, and it's like it's all for you. Everything over there is is for you and for you alone. And it's like being one with nature finally, and finding peace and finding serenity in on top of the whatever peak that you're climbing. But when I got there to the summit, lo and behold, what I see are people. uh, and they're all sitting on these jagged rocks, even much sharper than the ones that are at the base. And the first thing that I remembered that came to my mind is, um, you know those birds in Antarctica, or the sea birds. They'd find a rock, and they a rocky island, and they all nest there, and they rest. And you see the photos and videos in National Geographic. An island crowded with birds. So that's Nagpatong Rock, but instead of birds, it has people. And I was looking at them. Wow, this is like a 3-day sale in SM malls, and it's just so funny to me. It's still a great place. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed the place. I really did. But seeing that many people, and while all the while expecting that, oh, when I get there, finally it's one with nature. It was all that thought dies a very excruciating death when I got to the top, because what I saw were people, and I just laughed it off. And I don't really get disappointed that long, and I don't get angry at all anymore. But it's it's just funny for me. It's really funny. And but then you take in the view. So the view is great. It's not the peak itself isn't very high, so maybe we're already high in the mountains, in that mountain range. And so, if there's a mountain and then you climb it, the jump off, I would assume, is already high above sea level. Okay, so the elevation, when we were getting there, my ears popped at least 3 times, I think. So that's quite an elevation. It's high, but when you're at the peak of Nagpatong, you would the ground that you'd see below it is not the ground at sea level. It's ground that's already probably, I don't know. I don't know the measurements. I don't know the levels of that place, but I can't even speculate. But it's not sea level. That's what I'm sure. So it's not overwhelmingly. What I'm trying to say, it's not overwhelming to the senses that you're so high. It's like you're almost on an airplane, but still, the best thing about that is the greens are much greener compared to when you're higher, and it's just a sea of trees, and then you'd see the other rock formations that are there in the area, and it's it's very nice. It's majestic, and if well, the crowd doesn't help for you to take it in and be peaceful and be one with nature and meditate. But it's nonetheless, it's still a great view. But then maybe if you go on a weekday, it would be maybe you can do that. Maybe you can meditate in there if it was on a weekend. Maybe you'd be lucky. There'd be no other groups that's visiting, and you'd have it for yourself. But if you're going on a weekend, SM 3-day sale, baby, that's what you're gonna see. But that's all right. Like I said, I truly enjoyed that experience, and I'm recommending it to anyone, especially if you have a squad that you go around, that you go with on various trips. This is one place that you could definitely check out and have a good time for sure, because like I said, the hike is not very tedious. It's an easy hike, probably a boring hike if you're a very experienced climber. It's probably it's kind of, what, this is it. Maybe you'd go like that. But ended up catching my breath when I got to the top, but that's about it. It's not, I've been short of breath much worse doing other activities like burpees and and I don't know, boxing, sparring. Those would drain you. This one, there are also a lot of places where you can stop and rest for a bit, so it's not gonna be a problem. So if you're short of breath already, just stop, wait for 5 minutes or less, then you can go again. It's just a short trek. I'd say just about 5 to 7 kilometers, and maybe even less. Maybe not even 7 kilometers, but probably around 5. Probably around 5. Yeah, around 5. I'd say around 5. Other than that, it's easy. And I don't know, what else would I say about Nagpatong? Going down from the peak, of course I'd have to, because going down is the same path as when you're going up. So that's another factor that makes Nagpatong, the wait in climbing Nagpatong Rock much longer, because coming up and coming down is just the same way. And when I got to the pass where you're literally hanging for your life, it's it looks it looks so much harder. If there were no, I'd put it like this: if there were no guides to tell me exactly what to do on how to traverse that pass, I may have a chance. I may have a 60% chance of making it without without falling to my death. Going up. Okay, so if I'm going up, I may still fall, but I'd probably make it. Like I said, 60%. 60% that I'm gonna make it. If there were no guides and I'm going down, I have to pass it, I think 95% I surely would have fallen, because I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't even dare to to go there, because you can't see the rest of the path. You just see one side of it. The other steps are not visible. So with the guides, you're just assured that there is something else in that path that you could use. But if you're just there, you wouldn't know what's the next step after the first ones. So I probably wouldn't even dare go, and I wouldn't even know that there is a pass in that side. And basically, all I'm saying, it's harder to go down. I'm kind of chatty, but that's all I'm saying. And I don't know. Right now, it's with my seat. Let me just fix my seat. There you go. So I suppose this is the first episode of the Powerful Komiksman podcast, and I don't know. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna do comic reviews. Maybe right after. What do you say? Maybe right after. And I'm gonna start with Batman White Knight. I already have Mr. Miracle, so this is Mr. Miracle, and I already got this from last month, and I was supposed to make those comic reviews last month, but I had projects to do, and right now I think I'm just gonna start with Batman. I think this is more interesting to me right now, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.